Alright, sorry about that. Now, where were we? Yeah, Noah's Ark. Alright. So, just the gist of it, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Haven't read the story in a long time. If I pick up a Bible lately, usually it's Revelations, just based on the obvious of what's going on. Anyway, so the gist of it, God tells Noah there's going to be a flood. Alright? Maybe Noah doesn't believe him. No rivers, no oceans around. But anyway, God tells him there's going to be a flood. He's displeased with the way that the world has gone, and the degeneracy, and the sin, similar to what, we see in the world nowadays. But what I'm talking about has nothing to do with that. We're not talking about God here. Anyway, instructs Noah to build his ark and to gather up, the animals, everything he needs to repopulate the earth afterwards. Now, you would have to assume that includes food and everything else. So, where are we going here? The ark, to me, is an analogy or an allegory for preparedness, for being a survivalist, having your fucking eggs in a row, preparing for what is coming so that you can survive what is coming and rebuild your life afterwards. So right now, the message of this video is for all of you, and I would hope that most of you already have a lot of this stuff in your thoughts and, have started doing a lot of this. But we all need our arks. Now, I don't mean a big ass boat. I mean a place. Whether it's the place you live now or a place you can go to where you can ride out the storm, for lack of a better word, that is coming. We've all seen what's going on with this pandemic stuff, but the issue and the bigger problem that is going to arise, and what is going to be a bigger threat to our safety, our lives, than the pandemic itself, provided you even believe that it's dangerous to begin with, is the after effects of it. Particularly, we're going to see a shortage in food. I am 100% certain that a new Holodomor is going to take place. That is 100% orchestrated, 100% using the Divok 91 as the pretext or the excuse or the vehicle to drive this orchestrated global famine that is already happening, by the way. You might not see it in the West, you might not see it in Canada, the US, the UK, Australia, but Africa, India, they're seeing it. CNN can go on the news and show you the funeral pyres in India and tell you that that's them disposing of their dead from the COVID variants, but it's not. It's not. That's how they take care of their dead. They're used to having these mass cremation ceremonies. Mind you, the UN has tried to stop it for years because they say it's bad for the environment, or the emissions, the CO2. Don't bury your fucking dead because of the CO2, or burn your dead. Anyway. But no, the people in India are starving to death. Or they're so malnourished from lack of food that they are getting, the virus or another virus, a cold or flu, and they're dying. Because anyone with half a brain knows that if you don't have proper nutrition, you don't have vitamin D, you don't have the things that your body needs to survive, a common cold can wipe you off the face of the earth. So we're already seeing that happen, but it's coming here. You better bet your ass it's coming here. They're already working on it. Here we have Trudeau. We're in the midst of, according to them, according to their media, we're in World War II right now. This is our worst fight, our worst crisis since World War II. But he wants to tax you more. He wants to tax carbon. Oh, sorry, it's not a tax. It's a price on pollution. But he wants to hit you up with that when he already knows that people are struggling. Talk about kick you while you're down. I thought Justin Trudeau was for Canadians. I thought he was all about opportunities. You have these fucking shit libs in the cities who think the carbon tax is great because they get this rebate at tax return time. And, they get all the money they spent extra on gas back, and it's just cupcakes and rainbows and lollipops and fucking roses to them. Because they're too stupid to understand that everything they buy comes in a fucking truck, or comes in a train, or comes on a ship, all of which burn fuel, all of which are carbon taxed more and more and more. My family's grocery bill went up at least $300 a month last time they did a carbon tax increase, last April. So if the same thing, prices go up, they'll be up $600, let's say, a month in 2 years for groceries. People can't afford this, man. They're engineering famine that way. One, making it unaffordable. They're going to push you off meat. And we're getting into this in the documentary I'm working on. But like I said before, I'm trying. But my main goal is building my ark, which is the premise of this entire video. Is making sure that I can provide for my family without their grocery store. Okay, so 2.2, supply line breakdown. Because they've closed the meatpacking plants because of COVID. They can't get the migrant workers. They've put out all kinds of crazy legislation. They're really pushing the end to animal agriculture. Again, we get more into that in the documentary that will be out when I have the time. But like I said, it's not my number one concern. So please listen to what I have to say in these discussions while I'm driving. Because sometimes this is just the best I can do to get the information out. I mean, I have a life too, and we're living in, dare I say, biblical fucking times here, and we need to be focused more on what we can do for ourselves, our families, our communities, over what we can do to entertain people, or, this is important information. So the supply line breakdowns, okay? Then we're having problems with forest fires in California, which is where a lot of produce is grown. lot of evidence to suggest that those aren't natural fires. And even if they were natural fires, a lot of it has to do with UNESCO that stopped people being able to go out and selectively harvest areas of the forest and to clean up the brush, i.e. get rid of the fuel on the forest floor that fuels these massive forest fires. Because if you were still going out and applying proper forest management, fires would not be anywhere near as bad as they are. You have all this deadfall on the ground, all this dry material that's like gasoline to a forest fire, and it just goes up. This is engineered. Then you have places, Nova Scotia, I believe it's Nova Scotia or Newfoundland, they want you to register or get a permit to have a vegetable garden at your own house. In BC, you need to register your animals everywhere from, a couple chickens you have in your backyard to, 1,000 head of cattle if you're a rancher. They want it all registered, traced, and tracked. Just like the contact tracing they want to put on you. So back to our concept of the ark. This whole thing is going down right under your nose. If you haven't realized this now, just take a look at a few of the things I said, and just look at it in day-to-day life. When you go to the grocery store, notice how the prices are going up, or the price stays the same, but the portion has become less. Like a brick of cheese might still be the same price, but that brick is now an inch shorter. It used to be 4 inches tall, now it's 3. That 97-cent bag of chips used to be, used to be 3 inches taller, and it's not now. Same price, but this is how they're scamming you. So you need more, and you spend more, and they're carbon taxing you more. They're making it unaffordable for you to feed your family. So then what do? You feed them junk food. Contributes to them being sick. Eventually the junk food's not going to be there either. Walk into any supermarket anywhere and there are empty shelves. You go to the pharmacy at the pharmacy section at Walmart and a lot of the shelves are empty. Particularly the vitamins. Why is it the vitamins are gone? So the ark is an allegory for your preparedness. So what do you need for this? Number one, above all, food and water. Without food, without water, you're done. That's plain and simple. Otherwise, you are going to have to depend on the government to feed you. Which I believe is what they're setting up to happen. They're going to create an artificial food crisis, and you're going to need your vaccine passport or a social credit score to get your food rations every day. I'm serious. Then, what are you going to do? They're going to tell you, you need to take the vaccine, or you don't get any food. What are you going to do when you have starving children? You're probably going to take the vaccine, man. You can say you're not. When you have starving kids, and the government's telling you, we'll feed your kids. but you need to roll up your sleeve. And then a week later, well, we'll feed your kids, but your kids need to roll up their sleeves. That's how it's going to happen. Unless you build your ark. But it's simply not good enough to go out to My Patriot Supply or some company like that and buy 5-gallon pails of freeze-dried food. Because that freeze-dried food is only going to last you so long. And it's not always the best. That freeze-dried food is only going to last you so long. And when it's done, you're back to square one. You're back having to depend on the government or their FEMA camp or what have you. You'll be at the mercy of them, and you will do what you have to do. You need to be producing your own food. While we still have internet access and access to knowledge, you need to learn how to grow crops. You need to learn about soil pH and soil conditions and growing seasons and when you need to start seeds for this plant or that plant, when it needs to be harvested, how do you keep it going extra if there's going to be a frost, all that stuff, man. You need to really, really focus on that. I mean, how many of you have these things kicking around? Huh? These are seeds. How many of you have these kicking around? And I don't mean just enough to plant this year's garden. I mean at least, at minimum, enough to plant this year's garden and next year's garden. You need to learn how to harvest seeds from your crops and store them for the next year. Because I can almost guarantee you, they did it last spring in Michigan. They stopped people from being able to buy seeds. Here in Ontario now, you can't go buy seeds at Walmart. They have it taped off. And Amazon, well, I don't know. That's kind of sketchy to me. I try and get my seeds from organic places, from actual gardeners, not from these companies, because you never fucking know, man. But you need to know how to harvest your seeds. Not every plant has seeds inside the fruit. Not every plant's like peppers or tomatoes has seeds. Corn has the tassels on top. That's where its seeds are. Onions. If you let onions grow, onions will grow these flowers on top. Now, if you cut those flowers off, your onion will grow bigger underground. But those flowers are filled with thousands of seeds for onions. So it's a good idea to have a patch that you just let flower to collect the seeds for you. Potatoes, you put aside some potatoes to be your seed potatoes. That is, that's a staple crop you need. You definitely need to be growing potatoes. I mean, the Irish survived off potatoes. You gotta have your potatoes, and your nutrient-rich vegetables, vitamin-rich vegetables, and then you need to start looking in the meat department. You gotta raise animals, man. You have to raise animals. You're not going to survive off fucking soybean, which is shit for you anyway. I'd never grow that shit. But even if you live in the city, which I highly suggest, if you live in the city, you get the fuck out of there now. Buy some property. There's some places where you can get a lease on crown land. You can look into that. It's not ideal, but if you can get out there, especially if you can get up north to one of these unorganized townships where there is no building code, if you can get a lease on this crown land, and it's all crown land up in these unorganized townships, it's mostly crown land. You know, you can go out and build a cabin. You don't have to worry about the code. Harvest trees yourself. Learn how to hew logs. Learn how to do timber joinery. Make a timber frame house, a timber frame cabin, and get shit going. Or rent a house. Rent a house in the country. Or even a small town in a remote location. If you can rent a house in a small town in a remote location, you're way 10 times better than being near a city or in a city or in the suburbs. Because when this shit kicks off, people are going to be hungry and they're going to come looking for food. And they're going to be doing desperate fucking things. You need to get to a spot where you can produce food and a spot where you can defend yourself and protect your family. And the city, I'm sorry, but there is no way in hell you can, with any degree of certainty, guarantee the safety of yourself or your family. There's no way. Because it's coming at you from all angles. It only takes 3 days of people not to have food before they'll get to the point where they will kill you for food. And possibly kill you and turn you into food. Who knows? I don't plan on getting to that situation. So even if you rent a house in a small town somewhere and then try and find someone who's got a little bit of property, maybe you could lease a spot of their property and grow some food. Someone who's, there's lots of people out here in the country who have more land than they know what to do with, and if you toss them a little bit of money, they might let you grow some crops on their property. But even beforehand, if you are in the city, I mean, you can as far as the meat goes, you can supply yourself with enough meat to feed your family from a garage, a 1 to 2 car garage. Easily in a 1 car garage, if you know what you're doing. And it requires knowledge, and it requires skill, which are things, when everyone's sitting around home, that you can be doing right now, that you should have been doing a year ago. I've learned so much in the past year, just because the push has been on, and I've been basically prepared my entire life. I mean, I went through a natural disaster at about 9 years old. And we're in like minus 40 weather for 2 weeks. No power. No heat. And, I've been preparedness minded since that day. But, so for the garage grown meat, I'm going to tell you right now. Rabbits and chickens. Not meat chickens. Chickens for eggs. Rabbits for meat. Alright? This is very important. Rabbits are full-on herbivores. Okay? And they will eat pretty much anything that's green. You can go out and cut the grass and give it to them, they'll eat it. You can feed them very easily, okay? Chickens, on the other hand, are omnivores, all right? They eat meat, they eat vegetables, they eat grains, okay? And they expend a lot of energy. They take a lot of food, especially the meat birds, because you're taking them from chick to, your 8 to 12 weeks, and then they're gone, and you're not, in that time frame, you're not reproducing them. So you have egg-laying birds, you get the protein from your eggs, all right? And then you can hatch out, as long as you have a rooster, you can hatch out more birds for more eggs, or you can eat those birds. But so you constantly have this reproducing cycle. Because when we get into this Holodomor situation, you're not going to have that hatchery or that breeder to go to and say, hey, I need more rabbits or I need more chickens. They're just not going to be there, man. They're going after those people hardcore. Colorado, New Hampshire, all over the world, governments are putting in legislation aimed at food producers. And they're just basically trying to run them out and regulate them out of business. And it is very disturbing when you start looking at it and you see what's going on. It is plain as day to see what they are doing. And at the same time, they push their lab-grown meat, which has God knows what in it. Probably nothing good. Probably the same shit as these fucking jibbity jabs they're trying to give you. But, just give me a sec. Pull over for a sec. Yeah, so you need to develop animal husbandry skills. That is a must. Now, rabbits reproduce a lot, but you have to know how to raise them, because a female rabbit will sterilize other females around her. Sometimes they will castrate the males, so you need to keep them separate. And so what you do is you have your breeding rabbits and you breed them out, and then when she gives birth to those rabbits, you raise them up to the appropriate weight depending on the breed, and then you slaughter and eat those rabbits. And you know, you set yourself up 2 separate colonies, and then you'll be able to keep crossbreeding them so they don't become inbred, so you can keep your lines going. So when your breeders get old and they're not producing anymore, or they die, you know, you can have young rabbits to come in and take their place and be in a rotation. You know, and then the chickens, man, you know, so then you have eggs and you have the rabbits, and they work as a system together, and that is ideal for an urban setting or a setting where you don't have a lot of land. Like, contrary to what you've always believed, you don't need 100 acres to be a farmer. I mean, there's people, Curtis Stone, the urban farmer out in BC, man, that guy's made tons of money on quarter acre, eighth of an acre plots. It's just, you have to develop the knowledge and the skills of how to do it, and you can make it successful. And you need to incorporate this as part of building your arc, okay? Because as we know from the story, those people thought Noah was crazy. There's no rivers, there's no oceans nearby. They thought he was insane, all right? But when it started to rain, then they all wanted on the ark. Which brings us to what'll be the final point for this today. Oh, I forgot to include water, but that's pretty much self-explanatory, man. Store water. Have your ways of purifying water. Know where, you know, there's a source of water for you, independent from you know, whatever. Don't depend on city water. You should be out of the cities anyway. You know, you should be out of the cities anyway. And we're not going to get into energy or anything like that. So back to my point. When the rain started, then all the people realized, Noah was right. And they all wanted on the ark, which is exactly what people are going to do. So, while you're building your ark, you need to have extremely tight operational security on that. Don't tell people. Don't. If you have a group that's going to help mutually survive, you need to make sure that everyone is doing their part and that you are producing more than enough to take care of that group of people. Okay? Every adult needs at least 2,000 calories per day to keep from losing weight or muscle mass. Okay? And that's pretty much being sedentary. If you're working physically hard, which in the type of situation we're going for, and you're farming and whatnot, you're going to need about 3,000 calories a day. So my suggestion to you is, when you're doing your math, just take that high number. You need 3,000 calories a day per person. Children might not need that much, but count the children as 3,000 too. And then you have that headroom. You have the extra food. If an additional person or an additional couple people you bring in, or you lose some of your food, it spoils, the mice get into it. It is always better to have more than to not have enough. So this is at our third point. You need to protect it. You need to protect the ark. You need to protect your preparedness. And that includes having a way to defend yourself. Now, most prevalently, that would be firearms. You need to have firearms. You need to have ammunition. Enough ammunition. Preferably all of the ammunition, but that can be difficult on its own. And you need to know how to use it. If you can, get trained. And I don't mean just shooting pieces of paper and doing your sports shooting at the fucking range. Okay? You need to practice tactics. You need to practice clearing your house. Dry fire drills. If ammo's too expensive for your main gun, if you're shooting a 223, try and get a similar version of that gun in 22 LR. Practice with it, man. Practice with it. You can get a lot of 22s that are exactly like ARs. I mean, I know you can't really have an AR up here now, but if you had one before, you still have one. You need to be proficient in that. If you can, go to one of these tactical schools and get some training. Get medical training. I can't stress it enough that the number one most important thing you could have going into the situation that we're going into is skills and knowledge. You can have all the expensive, cool guy, tactical gear, whatever, on the planet. But if you don't know how to use it, you don't have the knowledge and the experience to use it, you might as well have nothing. Gear does not make you good at something. And in addition, you don't have to be excellent at one thing. You need to be all right at a lot of things. So one of the biggest parts of building your ark is building on what's in here. Because without building up what's in here, you're not going to be able to do any of the things out there that you're going to have to do to keep you and your family and your people alive. This will conclude things today. With that, that's a bit of a rant, but I got to make a few phone calls, and probably been about an hour left before I get back home. So anyway, just work on yourself, people. Build that ark, but don't wait. I mean, if you haven't started any of this stuff yet, you're almost too late, man, because the price of everything is insane now. I mean, you know, if you're just getting into like the firearms you know, the guns are crazy, man. I mean, like $500, $600, $700 for a Russian SKS. You used to be able to get them for like $150 a few years ago. Ammo was expensive. Food is expensive. Fuel's expensive. That's another thing. If you're dependent on gas generators, you should be getting some 55-gallon drums and filling them with gasoline and putting stabilizer in them and storing them away. You know, packing in water. But really, for energy, you should really look at, I mean, you know, you get your solar panels, your windmill, whatever. You should look into wood gasifiers, 100% wood gasifiers. You know, if you're going to heat, your spot should have a wood stove, no matter what. Don't rely on propane. It's only going to cost you more anyway in a non-collapse situation. You know, be independent. Burn wood. But do you have wood stacked up? You cut a tree, a lot of times it's got to sit for minimum 6 months, a lot of times like 2 years. You know, do you have a chainsaw? Do you have bar oil? Do you have extra chains? Do you have a set of files? Do you have the safety gear? Because if you get cut with that thing, you're not going to the hospital in this situation. Especially if they're putting these vaccine passports in, they'll probably refuse you medical care. Anyway, this video has gone on long enough. Best wishes to all of you. Get building your arcs. I want to see all of you survive. And start networking. Get together with people. That's one thing that I really need to work on myself, is that I'm not all that trusting of people. So that's where I can have an issue. Anyway, peace out, everyone.